Get £20 in risk-free bets for the Euros when you join SPK. That's money back in cash on your first £20 of losses. Well worth a go. Hello and welcome to episode 35 of Touchline Talk with Odds Changer. As usual, I'm joined by the one and only football writer and broadcaster, Dean Jones, to discuss all the latest news and gossip from the world of football. Exciting times now, Dean. The transfer window's getting busy, and also England are flying high at the Euros as well and hoping to reach the final this weekend. And what a stage that will be for all football fans if England can get to that final and maybe go on and win the trophy as well.
Yes, mate. Yeah, I mean, I'll be at the semi-final tonight, so
Hey, man.
I will be. Yeah, I'm not quite as nervous as I think I normally would be for a game like this. I think most people just are gonna just go and enjoy it and just hope for the best. I mean, there's a certain expectation because it's a Denmark. You're up against not an Italy or a Spain, but ultimately we've seen England slip up too many times to take these things for granted at this point. So yeah, very excited, and let's just hope for the best. And then once all this tournament's over, then we can properly focus on the transfer window. At the moment, it is a bit blurred for me. It is a bit blurred because I can't be totally distracted.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, mate. Some of those players are probably trying to put all transfer talk to the back of their mind right now, as well as focusing on the Euros. One of those players is Declan Rice of England. He's been one of England's star performers in the tournament so far. Again, lots of rumours about his future, Dean, at West Ham. Seems like he's turned down 2 contract offers already from the Hammers to extend his stay at the club. We all know a lot of suitors for Declan Rice out there. Chelsea obviously tried pretty hard under Frank Lampard to sign him last summer. I think they're going to come back again this summer and try and sign him. And also lots of talk that Manchester United are very keen on him as well. What's your latest take on the future of Declan Rice?
Declan Rice seems to be having his head turned right now about what could happen. I mean, he's obviously focused on the Euros and hasn't got to make this decision right now. But from what I understand, he's very open to the potential of leaving West Ham once he returns to club duties, and discussions are going to happen there about how that can happen. West Ham seem to be putting a big price tag on him. It's going to be at least £80 million. I'm not sure Chelsea or Man United are going to come in with an opening offer of £80 million for Declan Rice. But what needs to happen is that if those clubs are serious, then they do go and test the water pretty early on, I think, once into July. Now that pre-season's starting to get underway, clubs need to start making assurances of where the squads sit. And Declan Rice needs to know in his head, like, is there actually going to be an offer there? Because if there's not, I will focus on West Ham. But he's not going to sign a new contract at West Ham at the moment, because why would he? He's in a squad with Harry Kane at the moment, and he's seen what's happened when you sign a long-term, big money contract you can't get out of. Yep. Declan Rice is in such a good moment in his career. He knows that clubs are looking at him. There's no real need to go and sign up for West Ham, especially as the offer they're putting in front of him, while it's very good in West Ham terms, it's not the 200 grand a week he could potentially get at one of the other clubs. So, yeah, I think if West Ham really, really want to keep him, then go and give him that big contract that a £70 million, £80 million, £90 million player would deserve. If that's truly what I think he's worth, then he should be on 200 grand a week. If it's not that, if they're going to give him, I don't know, 150 or 140, whatever it is, then fine. But you have to accept that the player's going to have bigger ambitions of that, and he ultimately wants to go and play Champions League football, and could have the chance to do that soon.
Yeah, was this always going to be the case, Dean, that maybe Declan Rice would get a bit unsettled during the Euros? He's obviously mixing with these Chelsea stars, the Manchester United players as well at England, who have maybe been in his ear saying how good life is at Old Trafford, how good life is at Stamford Bridge. We know he's very close to Mason Mount as well. I'm sure he would love to link up with him, not just on the international stage, but also with clubs football as well. So was it always going to be a case of if Declan Rice had a good tournament, these players are going to be thinking, I'd love Declan Rice to join me on the club stage? So it's been one of those ones. It's hard to ignore when these big clubs do come calling for you.
It is hard to ignore, yeah. I think there was always the potential for it. I think more than that was possibly, could Declan make himself a starting role, and could he make himself an important member of a team that's genuinely challenging to win an international tournament? And he has done that. He's been one of the main players for England, and he'll now be convinced beyond doubt that he could go to pretty much any team and be a regular first teamer and be an asset to them. So I don't think he'll have any qualms about that now. And I think that that's important for him to know. It's all great being, a captain, a poster boy, a leader of a club like West Ham, which, he loves West Ham. There's no doubt about that. But when you know that you are capable of taking that step up and you look around you in the dressing room and hear, like you say, some of the stories of what it's like to win the Champions League or win the Premier League, there's no doubt you're going to fancy that. This isn't even going to be helped by the fact if England do actually win this tournament, that's going to give him more of a taste to actually have that experience behind him. So, I think with every game that's passed in these Euros, there's probably been more temptation in the back of his mind to think, right, if Chelsea do come knock him, I think I'm going to have to go for this.
Yeah, his price tag could be an issue, as you mentioned, for the interested clubs as well. His price tag is just going up, Dean, the way he's performing at the Euros, as you said. We're probably talking around 80 to 100 million pounds. It's a lot of money in these times after COVID, affecting a lot of clubs of the pandemic. So do you think anybody is willing to pay that money?
I think it's a stretch. I do think that £80 million is a lot for sure. And like I say, I don't think there'll be an opening offer of that. But we'll have to see. From what I've heard, I think there's more chance of Chelsea making the offer than Man United because of United signing Sancho, going after Varane, looking at other options, knowing what Declan Rice's demands are. I think United they're still interested, but I'm not sure it's quite what they thought it could be. They've looked at him for a long time, so if the opportunity is there, I'm sure they'll have the discussion. But United signing another player at £80 million, I'm not sure about, to be honest.
Yeah, they've already made a marquee signing in Jadon Sancho as well, so I'm not sure they've got the funds maybe to do a Declan Rice as well. And I think his preference is probably to stay in London, and that would put Chelsea in the box seat if Declan Rice was to leave West Ham this summer. But yeah, big few days ahead for Declan Rice, and it looks like it's going to be a big summer ahead as well for him as he decides his long-term future at club level. As we spoke there, Dean, Manchester United have been proactive so far in the transfer market, and all reports seem to suggest they're already lining up a couple more moves as well. Continued links with Rafael Varane of Real Madrid. He's been a long-term target for United, and that one seems to be gathering pace, as does the move for the young Rennes French midfielder Eduardo Camavinga. What's your latest on the moves that United are making for these two players?
Yeah, I've been quite sceptical on Varane, to be honest, since the rumours began, because it seemed very unlikely that he really would leave Real Madrid and come to the Premier League. And from what I'm told, United were quite sceptical of it as well, and still are to some degree, because you just wait. It almost seems too good to be true that Rafael Varane would, one, look to be leaving Real Madrid, and two, be like, yeah, I'll come and join you. But slowly the discussions have been continuing. And I think that United are growing in belief that actually Varane is quite serious about this. So let's keep this going. They're still talking to other targets in the background simultaneously, because if this falls through, then it falls through. Like, this was never a major plan of theirs to sign Varane. It's just an opportunity that's opened up. So the other targets that they've always had in the background, they're still there. There's still possibilities. But I think Varane, I mean, you just can't turn down the opportunity to talk to a player like that, can you? Because that does genuinely take you to another level if you're pairing him with Harry Maguire.
Yeah, it's got the makings of a world-class centre-back pairing, those two, Varane and Maguire. Varane's a winner, Champions League winner, serial Champions League winner with Real Madrid, World Cup winner with France as well. He's just going to bring so much class, experience and know-how to that Man United defence, which has been criticised in the past with a lot of fans not happy with Lindelof, and Eric Bailly, as we know, has had his injury problems as well. So if they were to get somebody like a Rafael Varane in that team, you've got to be thinking United are real serious contenders to fight for the Premier League title next season with him and Sancho possibly in.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's where United have got to be now. It's about strengthening your first 11. It's not just about getting the strength in depth, which they've been doing over the past couple of years, and they've got a lot of it now. You'll still probably see that in the sense that, the links with Kieran Trippier as an option to rotate with Wan-Bissaka and those kind of things. But ultimately, they've got the forward that's going to make the difference. And now to get that centre-back as well would make a massive difference to them. Then we'll have to see what happens in the midfield. Like I've kind of written off the Declan Rice one there. Camavinga, I was writing off a week ago because the talk was that it was going to be like 70, 80 million euros. I was like, there's absolutely no way United are going to be paying that money for an emerging young talent.
Yeah.
That's what Jadon Sancho cost. But, realistically, if it is 30 million, then that is reasonable for a player that is coming through. And one of the things I did hear quite early on when John Murta and Darren Fletcher came into their roles was that was an area of the field that they were keen to focus on. And it was more likely that they signed an up-and-coming player than an established star at 70, 80 million. So that would kind of fit with that. It's a slight risk because Camavinga is untested at this level. He's an unbelievable talent. I'm not doubting that. Initially, people in France I spoke to last week said there's always been a feeling that he would stay in France if he could. So if PSG were there, then he'd probably take that instead. They haven't come in at the moment. So that's one thing that does help United, is they're kind of getting a free run. And even Real Madrid not in this conversation at the moment. And they've been watching Camavinga for 2 or 3 years. So that's surprising. So let's see if United have this all their own way. If they do, then this is going to be unbelievable. But I suggest that there might be a twist to come yet.
Yeah, it seems like the path is maybe clear for United to pursue these two targets, Varane and Camavinga. But like you said, it's a bit of a transfer triangle with the other clubs involved. I think PSG would love Camavinga. Real Madrid would probably love Camavinga as well, while also Real Madrid, in an ideal world, would like to keep Rafael Varane after seeing Sergio Ramos leave. But as it seems, signals are pointing that he wants out for a new challenge as well. So, yeah, these three clubs are going to be busy working against each other, I think, to get these transfer targets either on new deals or to try and lure them away from Rennes, which Camavinga is. But probably the encouraging factor for United and the other clubs are that both of these players are entering the final year of their contract, so maybe the clubs can't demand big fees for them like maybe they could have before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's obviously a helpful route, the path that clubs are going down right now, looking at players that are winding down deals. And just seeing if opportunities are there, because a lot of clubs can't offer new contracts to the levels that they previously would have been able to. And big Premier League clubs can take advantage of that.
Yep, the Premier League do seem to have plenty of funds despite the pandemic affecting the finances of a lot of top clubs. It's the big one tonight, Dean. Euros semi-finals, England looking to book their place in the first major final since 1966. Denmark stand in their way and Italy are sitting there waiting in the final. You've got to be confident, Dean, of England now going all the way after that impressive performance against Ukraine last weekend.
Yeah, I wouldn't usually be too confident, but that performance and how controlled it was against Ukraine has definitely given me extra hope and faith in this team and Southgate. So, yeah, I mean, still not conceded a goal, so I'm going to trust that continues. I'm going to go 2-0, I think, mate. 2-0 England.
2-0 for England. That is 37-5 with SPK, 2-0 England. And as you said, England have had the best defence in this tournament yet to concede. And we all know Denmark have come into their own in these knockout stages and picked up some impressive results, but they are conceding goals. So, yeah, England worthy favourites for this game. And like you, Dean, I think they'll get the job done here, but I think they might just concede in this game. There's going to be a lot of pressure on England to see the job through and get into that final against Italy on Sunday, which has the makings of a cracking final, hopefully. But yeah, I think England will have too much for Denmark, who have shown great spirit after everything what's happened in the tournament with Christian Eriksen. But I will go for a 2-1 win for England. That's 19-2 with SPK. But let's hope it's as good a semi-final as it was Italy against Spain. And let's hope it's a big Sunday next Sunday with England against Italy in the final of Euro 2020. That takes us nicely on to Barcelona, Dean, who have obviously been hit really badly by the pandemic and their finances. It's going to be a big transfer window for the Spanish Giants. We all know that Lionel Messi is officially a free agent now, yet to sign that new contract from Barcelona. They're really struggling to fund deals right now as well due to the salary cap in Spain as well. So they need to slash their wage bill just to get Messi tied down to a new contract as well, which is staggering when you think about it. Real terrible financial trouble Barcelona have. I think they've got debts of over 1 billion as well. They've made these free transfer signings this summer so far: Memphis Depay, Sergio Aguero and Eric Garcia, but might not be able to register them because of the salary cap, which is crazy when you think about it, Dean. But it seems like it's going to be a fire sale at Barcelona. Some big names maybe open to be let go by Barcelona. The likes of Pjanic, Coutinho, Umtiti, and also now Antoine Griezmann's the latest name to be linked with a move away from Camp Nou. Chelsea and Manchester City been credited with an interest in Griezmann, possibly City targeting him if they're unable to make a move for Harry Kane. What do you take on this whole Barcelona situation, and do you expect most of these players to move on before the close of the transfer window?
I think they're going to struggle to get rid of Griezmann, to be honest. I think that he is on his contract is on at Barcelona is rising with every season, and that's another problem that they've got. And he hasn't been very convincing in his time at Barcelona so far. He's not a priority target for any of the big Premier League clubs. Maybe a fullback option, but that's an expensive fullback option and a slight risk. So Barcelona are struggling to get rid of Antoine Griezmann. They're definitely open to him leaving, but they need good money for him. And I don't see it coming at the moment. And people around the club are like, not sure we're going to find a new club for Antoine Griezmann. So that's an issue. Obviously, a lot of the other players that you mentioned there's the potential that they go out on loan, which is fine, but it's still only half solving a problem, isn't it? And then with Messi, you're basically now just hoping he takes a massive pay cut and just agrees to stay for the good of the club. It seems that that's the only real way around this, and he probably will because he loves Barcelona and he's a good guy. There's not many footballers left in the world that would have this loyalty and be willing to do something like that. I think Messi might be one of them, though. So that might help dig him out of a hole. I still think really they could do with finding, new solutions, though, and it might be selling players that they really don't want to sell and listening to offers for, it might be Frankie de Jong and Serginho Dest even have to come onto the radar at some point. If they're that desperate for money, then these young guys that they've invested in as the future, have you got a question to ask them? Sergio Busquets, I don't know if there's going to be the offers there, but people like that, they've been integral to your success. Are you suddenly having to think about moving them on? It's a really, really troubling time for Barcelona and what's going to come of them. I've seen comparisons made to what happened with AC Milan when their great team fell apart and they fell away for a long time. Obviously, we don't really want to see these big clubs fall away completely, but when you are built in the way that they were over that period of time under Bartomeu, this was always a risk, and unfortunately, they're now feeling the effects of it, and you can't hide from it. They're in big trouble.
Yeah, so badly mismanaged at the top level, Barcelona, as you mentioned, Dean, to get themselves into this state in the first place. Serious questions need to be asked about the hierarchy at the Camp Nou as well. Obviously, they lost Luis Suarez in the summer when he was told to move on, and that cost him as well as he went and won the league with Atletico Madrid as well. Just talking about Griezmann, what about a move to Newcastle? He played for them in Football Manager while he's away at the Euro, so maybe that's an encouraging sign to Newcastle to get the checkbook out, Mike Ashley, and make a move for Griezmann. What about another player? Coutinho keeps being linked with a move back to the Premier League. The likes of Arsenal have been linked. I've seen Everton, Leicester as well, where Brendan Rodgers had him at Liverpool as well. He's going to be pretty cheap. I think £20 million you could get him out for on a permanent deal from Barcelona. Also, AC Milan in Italy have been linked with him as well. Just Coutinho needs to move on for the good of his career, I think, right now.
He really does need to move on, and he needs to find somewhere that he's settled and happy. It's been quite sad, really, to see what's happened to him, considering when he left Liverpool, he was in the top 5 players in the world probably at that time. You have to believe that he can get back to that level. And those clubs that you're talking about there, particularly in Arsenal, who are obviously struggling to attract top-tier players right now because they're not in Europe, that's a route they should be looking down. With their agent links, I think it's very plausible that Coutinho can become an option for them. If the player's keen, which I don't see why he shouldn't see Arsenal as a good platform, they're looking for an attacking midfielder, a creator. Absolutely should be looking. Everton have been linked with him before. Obviously, they've always got big ambition in terms of what managers they want, which big players they want. They know that, they think they kind of expected to lose Richarlison this year, partly. That might now be delayed for a little while, but Richarlison will probably be gone in the next year. So maybe you need to start transforming that. James Rodriguez, not sure what's going to happen there. So definitely can see those two clubs being in that conversation.
Yeah, it'd be great to see Coutinho back in the Premier League. As you said, Dean, while he was at Liverpool, he really lit up the Premier League on occasions with some of his performances as well. But I think for any Liverpool fan out there hoping he might come back to Anfield, that seems like it's a
No.
no-goer right now, even at that cheap price as well. It seems like Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool have moved on from Philippe Coutinho. But yeah, big summer ahead for Barcelona. They need to get their act together and get their finances sorted. Otherwise, as you said, we could see a dismantling of another great European superpower. Moving on then, Tottenham finally have a new manager in place in Nuno Espirito Santo. He was confirmed as the replacement for Jose Mourinho. He's got a big job in his hands, Dean. The squad does need a lot of reshaping and rebuilding after what was left behind him. And I think finances aren't really flush right now at Tottenham either, still paying off their stadium. I think they probably need to sell a few players to raise a few funds. And it seems defence is a top priority for Nuno to maybe improve. Seems like there's interest in Southampton's Yannick Vestergaard, who's impressed for Denmark at the Euros. Also, we know Joachim Andersen, who was on loan at Fulham last season, has been a top target for them as well, while Takahiro Tomiyasu from Bologna, still ongoing talks over a possible move for the Japanese international as well. What are you hearing coming out of Spurs right now?
I think it's a difficult one because I heard when the other managers were all having their talks and trying to decide whether they were going to take the job or not, there was quite a few reservations and concerns about what the budget was truly going to be for transfers this summer. Yet it seems that they are going to have half decent money to spend right now under Nuno. So I'm interested to see what level they start shopping at. I put out a story yesterday that they're looking at Frank Kessie at AC Milan as a potential midfield option. Kessie's contract is running down. At AC Milan, they're desperate to keep him and they're trying to resolve it. They just can't afford the actual terms that he wants right now. So Tottenham just trying to keep in the loop on that one. They've been linked with Weston McKennie as well. I think it's quite an obvious thing here to look at the Italian clubs and Italian links. We saw when Paratici came in that they went down the Italian route straight away in terms of managers that they looked at. I know they didn't end up doing that, but I do expect them to look at Italian targets as well, players at Serie A clubs. So that's going to be interesting to see what other players are linked, in the coming days. But certainly a centre-back, a central midfielder, and then also sign a striker as well in this window. I'm not saying a replacement for Harry Kane, but they need another striker. And even before the Euros and everything, they were planning to do that. So they'll make at least 3 signings, I believe. It'll just be interesting to see what level those players are on. I don't think, to be honest, it's going to be enough to convince Harry Kane that this is where his long-term future is. But that doesn't mean that it won't be a good summer for them. I think they can still, have good recruitment.
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, they might have to sell a few players as well, maybe to raise the funds for Nuno's transfer kitty as well. Alderweireld seems to be the latest name, Dean, that wants out of the club as well. And Serge Aurier, we've also known for quite a while that he's been unhappy at the club and maybe move on as well. So that leaves a couple of spaces in defence that need filling. So they won't be easy to replace.
And that's fine because they're high earners, So and I don't think you're seeing those 2 players at their best in recent times. So don't think that's the end of the world. Should probably throw Adama Traore into the conversation here, by the way. Think that there's a good chance that his name is being spoken about right now to go in there with Nuno. But then there's other players, what happens with Harry Winks, Musa Sissoko, Lucas Moura. I was told at the end of the last season he would probably be moved on. So I think there's quite a few. Yeah, there could be 6, 7 first-team players that are made available and could create funds that can be reinvested. I also heard that, there's also the issue of naming rights around Tottenham's new stadium. Nothing's come of that yet, but there have been a few whispers in the last month or so that Levy might have an announcement up his sleeve. I don't know if it is about that, but someone said he seems quite excited about something else that's bubbling. So that would be handy if they can get a load of money out of somebody just putting their name on the stadium. And that might cheer Tottenham fans up if that was to be announced.
What about it to Harry Kane Stadium just to convince Harry Kane to stay? That could be the move by Daniel Levy. The master plan to keep Harry Kane at the club. We named the stadium after.
That'd be nice.
You cannot leave. So, big summer ahead for Spurs. not just with Harry Kane's situation as well, but I think for other transfer signings as well, ins and outs. It's going to be a busy time for the new man Nuno at the North London club. Probably some of the big news this week, Dean, was Danny Ings, who's been a Tottenham target, has turned down a new lucrative 4-year contract from Southampton. I think it would have made him the highest paid player in the club's history as well. It seems Danny Ings wants to move on and play at a higher level and maybe play for a club that's competing for the Champions League and all other trophies as well. Good player, Danny Ings. Obviously had his time at Liverpool, which was badly interrupted by injuries, but it seems like he fancies another crack at a top club in the near future as well. Difficult one this for Southampton. They really don't want to lose their star player, but again, he's now entering the final year of his contract at St Mary's, and they can't really afford to let him run down his contract and possibly leave on a free transfer next year as well. So what are you hearing on Danny Ings? Do you think he will leave the club this summer?
I think he's quite keen to find out what potential options are there for him. And I think his problem is that he's seen as kind of a backup option for most of the clubs that are interested. Tottenham have obviously had interest for a long time. Doesn't seem to be as much of a priority as it was, I don't know, back in January or something like that. So that's not helpful for him. So I mentioned the other day, maybe at Man City, if things don't go well for them, then and they look for a stopgap year where they just wait out for Haaland or whoever for another year, or maybe even Kane. Ings could go in there, but again, it would mean waiting to see what happens. It's a really difficult one for him there, but I think it explains why he wouldn't be signing up to a new contract. Southampton, as you say, can't really take any risks at this point, can they?
Yeah, they'll probably need the funds if they are to improve their squad elsewhere, because I don't think flush with money either down at St Mary's right now after the pandemic as well. But Danny Ings has done this before, Dean. He's run down his contract. He did it at Burnley and then moved on to Liverpool, who had to pay a compensation fee for him. So it's not alien to him. I think he'd be more than happy maybe to sit tight and see what offers come his way in January on a pre-contract, or even next season on a free transfer, which would be a big blow for Southampton, because if they lost out on his money and maybe having a player who's maybe not totally focused and maybe thinking about his next move, could be a major struggle for Southampton next year.
Yeah, I think they'd already be looking into options, to be honest, to replace him. I think that's probably becoming common knowledge now that they're looking at other targets, other options. And I'll be very surprised if Southampton don't sign a new striker within the next few weeks, to be honest.
Yeah, I think they're close to getting Adam Armstrong from Blackburn, who's attracted interest from a few Premier League clubs. I think Everton, West Ham, Norwich have all looked at him, but from what I'm hearing, it is Southampton who are in the box seat to try and land the young forward who enjoyed a really good season in the Championship last year, finished second top scorer to Ivan Toney, and I think he's got real potential maybe to come to the Premier League and prove a few points to people who maybe questioned him when he left Newcastle as a youngster, that he didn't have it to make it at the highest level. But yeah, I think somebody like Adam Armstrong, probably get him for just over 10 million plus add-ons, could be a good addition for the Southampton team. And I think he was on a target even before this Danny Ings news. I think he was ready to be brought in alongside Danny Ings, never mind just as a replacement if Ings does leave.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Southampton very smart in the way they recruit, and they're prepared for scenarios like this anyway. So that's a great thing about the way that club is run. I think that Armstrong is perfect in terms of profile for where Southampton are, and finding a player with that talent merged with drive and ambition. He'll want to go even higher than Southampton at some point, but he'll see that as the perfect platform for him right now, I think, moving on from Blackburn, yeah.
Yeah, could be a good fit, that one, for Adam Armstrong to go into Southampton, who play a good style of football under Ralph Hasenhüttl as well. But yeah, they'll be desperate to keep hold of Danny Ings. But let's see what the next couple of months of the transfer window brings for the future of Danny Ings. Right, that's us here for another week on Touchline Talk. We will be back next week when England will hopefully be European champions if they can get to the final and win it. But yeah, we'll be back next week for more insight and the latest news and gossip from the world of football.